On thought and sense, that the beautiful and good is in God only, and elsewhere nowhere. I gave the perfect sermon yesterday, Asclepius. Today I think it right, as a sequel thereunto, to go through point by point the sermon about sense. Now sense and thought do seem to differ, in that the former has to do with matter, the latter has to do with substance. But unto me both seem to be at one and not to differ. In men, I mean. In other lives, sense is at one with nature. But in men, thought. Now mind doth differ just as much from thought as God doth from divinity. For that divinity by God doth come to be, and mind by thought, the sister of the word, and instruments of one another. For neither doth the word find utterance without thought, nor is thought manifested without word. So sense and thought both flow together into man, as though they were entwined with one another. For neither without sensing can one think, nor without thinking sense. But it is possible, they say, to think a thing apart from sense, as those who fancy sights in dreams. But unto me it seems that both of these activities occur in dream sight, and sense doth pass out of the sleeping to the waking state. For man is separated into soul and body, and only when the two sides of his sense agree together does utterance of its thought conceived by mind take place. For it is mind that doth conceive all things good thoughts. When it receives the seeds from God, their contraries, when it receiveth them, from one of the daemonos, no part of the cosmos being free of daemon, who stealthily doth creep into the daemon who's illuminated by God's light, and sow them in the seed of its own energy. And mind conceives the seed thus sown, adultery, murder, parricide and sacrilege, impiety and strangling, casting down precipices, and all other such deeds are the work of evil daemons. The seeds of God, 'tis true, are few, but vast and fair, and good. Virtue and self-control, devotion. Devotion is God-gnosis, and he who knoweth God, being filled with all good things, thinks godly thoughts, and not thoughts like the many think. For this cause they who Gnostic are, please not the many, nor the many them. They are thought mad and laughed at, they're hated and despised, sometimes even put to death. For we did say that bad must needs dwell here on earth, where 'tis in its own place. Its place is earth, and not cosmos, as some will sometimes say with impious tongue. But he who is a devotee of God will bear withal, once he has sensed the gnosis. For such an one things, in though there be for others bad, are for him good. Deliberately he doth refer them all unto the gnosis. And, thing most marvellous, 'tis he alone who maketh bad things good. But I return once more to the discourse on sense. That sense doth share with thought in man, doth constitute him man. But 'tis not every man, as I have said, who benefits by thought. For this man material, that other one substantial. For the material man, as I have said, consorting with the bad, doth have his seed of thought from daemons, while the substantial man, consorting with the good, are saved by God. Now God is maker of all things, and in his making he maketh all at last like to himself. But they, while they're becoming good by exercise of their activity, are unproductive things. It is the working of the cosmic course that maketh their becomings what they are, befouling some of them with bad, and others of them making clean with good. For cosmos too, Asclepius, possesseth sense and thought peculiar to itself, not like to that of man. 'Tis not so manifold, but as it were a better and simpler one. The single sense and thought of cosmos is to make all things, and make them back into itself again, as organ of the will of God, so organized that it, receiving all the seeds itself from God, and keeping them within itself, may make all manifest, and then, dissolving them, make them all new again, and thus, like a good gardener of life, Things that have been dissolved it taketh to itself, and giveth them renewal once again. There is no thing which it gives not life, but taking all unto itself it makes them live, and is at the same time the place of life and its creator. Now bodies matter-made are in diversity. Some are of earth, of water some are of air, and some of fire. But they are all composed. Some are more composite, and some are simpler. The heavier ones are more composed, the lighter less so. It is the speed of cosmos course that works manifoldness of kinds of births. For being a most swift breath, it doth bestow their qualities on bodies together with the one pleroma, that of life. God, then, is sire of Cosmos. Cosmos, of all in Cosmos, and Cosmos is God's son, but things in Cosmos are by Cosmos. And properly hath it been called Cosmos, order, for that it orders all with their diversity of birth, with its not leaving aught without its life, with the unweariedness of its activity, the speed of its necessity, the composition of its elements, and the order of its creatures. The same, then, of necessity and propriety should have the name of order. The sense and thought, then, of all lives doth come into them from without, inbreathed by what contains them all, whereas Cosmos receives them once for all together with its coming into being, and keeps them as a gift from God. But God is not, as some suppose, beyond the reach of sense and thought. It is through superstition men thus impiously speak. For the things that are, Asclepius, are all in God, are brought by God to be, and so depend on him, both things that act through bodies, and things that through soul substance make other things to move, and things that make things live by means of spirit, and things that take unto themselves the things that are worn out. And rightly so. Nay, I would rather say he doth not have these things, but I speak forth the truth. He is them all himself. He doth not get them from without, but gives them out from him. This is God's sense and thought, ever to move all things. And never time shall it be when in a wit of things that are shall cease. And when I say a wit of things that are, I mean a wit of God. For things that are God hath, nor aught is there without him, nor is he without aught. These things should seem to thee, Asclepius, if thou dost understand them, true. But if thou dost not understand, things not to be believed. To understand is to believe. To not believe is to not understand. My word doth go before thee to the truth. But mighty is the mind, and when it hath been led by word up to a certain point, it hath the power to come before thee to the truth. And having thought o'er all these things, and found them consonant with those which have already been translated by reason, it hath, e'en now, believed, and found its rest in that fair faith. To those, then, who by God's good aid do understand the things that have been said by us above, they're credible. But unto those who understand them not, incredible. Let so much, then, suffice of thought and sense.